there, Workforce. Chris here with Work to Game, and today I am going to be diving into an introduction to the interface for World of Warcraft. So let's say you have decided to start playing, you have gone ahead and dove in, you've picked your first class, you've picked your race, you picked your server, all of these things that there's a lot of great guides on, and I'd love to weigh in on, but you're a little bit lost on the interface. Now, if you start a character at level 1, it's going to try to, almost to a painstaking degree, tell you about things like where your different keybinds are and make sure you know how to loot things. But if you dove in, especially by pre-ordering, BFA, or you got Legion, so now you've already got this level 100 boost and you really have never played an MMO before, or you're new to WoW, a lot of this interface may look a little different than anything you've seen before. So I just want to kind of make my way clockwise around the screen and run through some things to make sure that you're totally aware of just the absolute basics to get by in the game. So let's dive in. Alright, so here we are, and we're on my monk, who is currently in my healer spec because I've just been picking up my artifact power over at the table each day. So I really am not going to have everything exactly set up, which is perfect to just introduce you guys. Now, of course, on the top left is going to be your information as far as your health and your mana. I don't have any add-ons enabled at the moment, just to assume that you don't either. Normally my interface would look a good deal different than this. If you join a party, it's going to appear here in the left, and it's going to be their status as well. No big deal. That all makes sense. These are going to be your status effects up above. All I have right now is that I'm tracking Ancient Mana, which helps me in Suramar. But as we get into our mini-map, that makes sense. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, it's got some icons on here, and I can decide which icons I want enabled. That's things like maybe you don't want to track pets because you're not interested in pet battles right now. Or you want it to be really clean, so you can just turn it all off, and then you can literally say, oh my gosh, I cannot find, this Flight Master. That's no big deal. Or Townsfolk. I just want to look for the ability to repair. If I turn that on, then I can know that in this area, there really isn't anywhere to repair, but if there was, then that would show up on the map, right? Now I'm going to turn that off because I really don't need that. So then you have your calendar. Your calendar over here is awesome. This is going to tell you that currently there's Noble Garden going on, and there's going to be ongoing. We have Dark Moon Fair, when it ends, when it starts. Today is March of the Tadpoles, and then that tells you also kind of what upcoming weeks are. You can even go in here and create an event, so you can add your raid, you can invite other people. So it's pretty powerful for being in-game. You can scroll out as many months as you want to, no big deal. That's awesome. That's what tells you kind of what is going on this week, when the next holiday is. Now your class hall report, if you've already kind of unlocked your class hall, this tells you things like how much you have left with Nomi, when all of your stuff is going to end with your class hall. So it's great to be able to check in on that stuff remotely. You can also be using the app to check in on a lot of stuff. If you haven't downloaded the app, it's awesome. Your real time and your local time, so you can set it to 24-hour mode, use local time. I prefer to just kind of run off the server time, which happens to be set when my local time is, but even if not, I prefer to just kind of run off the same time as everybody else in game, because that's usually how they're going to set raid time and things like that too. Now your quests are going to pop up here, and if you had your quest pane open, you can decide which ones to track and which ones not. Now there's a couple different kinds of quest items. There's kinds that appear in your inventory. A lot of those are accessible from here. There's also ones that are going to have a giant button appear down here at the bottom of your screen. So you're really going to have to pay attention to each quest on kind of whether or not these items are over on this side, or they're down here, or they have to be manually clicked, or whatever that is. Now these bars over here, I turned these on because I wanted more bars, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Working our way around, now we have our inventory, then we have our menus, let's do those last, and our skills. Awesome. Your chat is over here underneath me. There are different tabs, you can manage those filters, things like that. So let's dive into the actual interface itself. So the first pane you're going to want to pull up is your character pane. Now, as I said, this is a healer, it's an off-spec for this monk, and so this is really something that's good to know. The first thing is, with all of the newest gear, at least as of Legion, you'll notice that there's a grayed out stat, and on here it's agility, because healers don't need agility. And what that means is that over here, right now, that stat is rolling something int, is rolling my main stat, but if I were to switch to my damage dealing spec, that would swap to agility, which minimizes the amount of gear swapping as opposed to past expansions or other MMOs. The other thing you'll notice is over here you have the ability to mouse over all these stats and it'll tell you what they do. And that's going to help you in that that'll tell you kind of what stat you want more of, though I do recommend you go out and find forums when you're looking at that stat priority. And where that becomes important is, for example, I have a neck piece for this healer that I have not socketed yet. And what I should do is I should go onto the market and I should buy myself a gem or have a friend make me a gem. And knowing what stat that gem needs to be is going to be based on kind of where your stat priority lies. Now you can also have all your different titles you've unlocked, and then you do have equipment manager, so you can swap this stuff. What I do recommend you do is you can go into settings and you can assign it to a specialization so that every time you change specializations it automatically rolls to that set. Otherwise, you're just changing manually. You're welcome to do that, I just don't see any reason for the extra effort. Next is spellbook and abilities. So your general abilities up here is going to be things where you find like a lot of your passives. It's also going to be where you might find things like your guild perks or different racial abilities, and so these can be really helpful if you ever want to like put revive battle pets over on your bar. So I can drag that over here and just set it on a bar, and then you can go into your main spec here and it's actually going to highlight the abilities that are not on the bar. So I've intentionally taken one of them off the bar prior to this video, and that's detox. That removes all magic, poison, and disease. That would be important for your healer to have, and when I drag that down here it'll stop being highlighted. This one's a talent, it goes off automatically. I can trigger it manually, but I just haven't found the need to do that. So I leave that one highlighted, but that gives me the ability to know which ones have been bound and which ones haven't. So if you haven't played in a while and you want to be sure that things are bound just the way you want, clear your bars and then just one by one add them back on, and that'll be sure that they're exactly where you want them. Now as we move on, we get into specializations and talents. Once again, I haven't really played this class much on this character, so I've just clicked these down here so that it would stop warning me that I have some available, but I do have these over here and I can change those as needed. You also have honor talents, same theory, and then specialization. This is where I change to that tank or change to that damage dealer. No big deal. Now as we move into achievements, you could do a whole video on just the achievement pane. You really could. So let's go ahead and move on to quest log. The new quest log is awesome. This shows you the zone that it's in. You can go in and you can say, okay, that's a dungeon thing. Where's that at? It says dungeon right here, so I don't really worry about the map because I can just queue for that through the duty finder. Oh, here's one. It shows exactly the areas it's in. You can see right here that I have just a little bit of time left to finish up some world quests. And so you can really click through here and then you can say, you know, I want to turn this in now. All right, well, that's fine. Go ahead and track that, and it'll automatically move it to the top of this list. If you don't manually track, then it's going to take its best guess at what order it wants to put these in over here, and when they fill, this whole thing will just stop tracking them. But they are still in your quest log. Your quest log does have a cap on the number of quests it can have. It just doesn't tell you when you're getting close to that cap, so you'll know when the quest starts saying you can't pick up anymore. So we close our quest log there, and here's your guild tab. That's going to be where you manage everything going on with your guild. No big deal there. If you choose to use a guild, then that's an interesting tab to have to join party members and things like that. And then we move into duty finder. This is going to be one that you use a lot. The dungeon finder here is where you're going to find dungeons, raids, pre-made groups that are very specific, and a lot of this has to do with kind of, do I need to queue for a specific dungeon for a quest? Am I just trying to do my random Legion Heroic? Am I trying to do my random time walking? Right now they're pushing Mist of Pandaria for that. And then you can actually also take, okay, what do I want to queue as? You know, and so this kind of is where you're going to spend a lot of your time when you want to spend time queuing for things. There's a separate tab for PvP. There's a separate tab for Mythic dungeons, which is kind of getting into your end game. Now, some of these may require that you have certain amounts of gear and things like that, so just kind of be aware of that. It does kind of tell you where it is within the level ranges and so on and so forth. So this is really a tab that you're going to know when you go in it what you're looking for. You just need to be able to use the drop down and find it. They are sorted. If you go into specific, they are sorted by Legion versus not Legion. If you go into Raid Finder, they're sorted by which kind of raid that is. So you can find them very easily, and your quest is going to tell you, as you notice that I had that open earlier, if I can find my quest button here. you know that, okay, this says, for example, I need to find Seat of the Triumvirate, the Crest of Knowledge. That's what I need to run. So Seat of the Triumvirate is what we want to run. So if I were to go to my group finder, I could just go into Heroics until I found one, but I could just queue for it manually by going up to Specific Dungeon and looking for Seat of Triumvirate. And so I can kind of uncheck Maw of Souls, and then Seat of Triumvirate is right here, and I can click Find Group. And then that would start putting me in the queue for that dungeon so that I could knock that quest out. Now, we hop over to Collections, and this tab is so much better than past expansions. Depending on when you last played, this might have changed drastically. It might be exactly how you remember it. The first tab is going to be all your mounts. This is everything you have in here. You have a random mount favorite button. I've just favorited all of my flying mounts so that I can guarantee whatever mount it puts me on is flying. And then you go into Pet Journal. It does try to have a little bit of logic to it, but I find that that's just easier to go ahead and put that on. I haven't played this class, but I usually have that on Shift R for all of my classes. Then we go over to Pet Journal. If you haven't gotten into Battle Pets, then just ignore this tab for now, but this is where you can kind of sort them by every different type. You can check them by sources. So you can go in and you can say, okay, how do I get more pets? You can have your team ready. That's just the team I was leveling with right now. And then you can move on to your toy box. There is a whole bunch of toys. If you took a break like I did since this tab was added, be sure you go in and you log on to a lot of those other classes, because some of these were just sitting on alts that I hadn't logged on to. So if we hop over to heirlooms, this is how all your heirlooms are managed now. You buy these at a guild vendor, and then there's a guy in the rogue quarter in Undercity for the rest of them. And so you can literally just click them and it'll create that, and it just creates the item, and that's really awesome because there's no mailing it, there's no inventory management. Whenever you're done with it, it is literally worthless. You just destroy it. It's still sitting in here. They default to capping at level 60, and then you can pay money to buy upgrades to push them to the ability to go to level 90 and eventually all the way up to 110. I assume in Battle for Azeroth drops there will be a new gold sync to be able to get these all the way up to 120. You'll see I don't have quite all of mine yet. Some of them aren't purchasable with just gold, so you can kind of go in and it'll tell you they're grayed out if you change your filters, and it'll tell you where to get them from. Some are from Darkmoon Faire, so on and so forth. Then we go into appearances. This is your transmog. It's set up a lot like Diablo 3, and so you can go to any transmog vendor. There's one in Dalaran, and you also see a fair number of people on their Mists of Pandaria Mammoth, so you can change it there. And this is where you kind of can go through all the different things that are unlocked. There are add-ons to help you track this sort of thing. And then you can actually scroll through, and at some point here they get blue, and it tells you world drop, which boss this drops from, which boss. So you can collect all of the things. They are shared, so like the fact that I have leather things unlocked on my druid, if they are just leather things and they are not bound to class druid, my monk immediately has access to those. So as you kind of play more and more classes, you might see this actually start to finish out if that's something that you're trying to keep track of. If so, I'd recommend a add-on or something to tell you each time you pick up a piece of gear if that's one that's already in your collection or not, since the appearance may be shared across multiple items. Now, moving right along, we get into the adventure guide. This is how you queue for different things, and it kind of recommends stuff. It's just another way to get into kind of suggested content. It does tell you kind of where different raids are, and kind of this will tell you everything about all the fights. So if you don't want to watch videos, you'd rather read, you can go back and you can do this inside a dungeon. You can do Cathedral of Light. We're on Agranox. Okay, here's everything that's going on. If for some reason you want to see the Mythic, okay, on Mythic, it tells you that instead he summons Nourishing Lashers to restore his health via Nature's Infusion. Very nice. So it also tells you what his loot is, his abilities, and what he looks like. So the adventure guide is there to help you. After you get past the suggested content thing, this is literally just helping you see what all is going on and what is possible to be found. So you can see what legendaries are and so forth. The shop, of course, this is going to be built in game because they do want you to. I did not do Battle for Azeroth digital upgrades, so they are going to tell me, hey, for $20 you can still get that. Here's some pets that are for sale. Here's your WoW tokens. If I want to pay $20, I could have 198,000 gold right now. So there's I can buy level boosts, I can buy bundles. So they do kind of push that there. And then we get into our game menu. And this is where you're going to find, once again, shop, what's new. Then your system. Your system is going to have different graphics settings. I wouldn't mess with these too much. I play in windowed because I have a 5K monitor, so I've got more than enough room to have like my browser up on the side. And then you get into different languages, your keyboard options, and your sound. This is where you can adjust your master volume and things like that. You may need to do this. There also may be certain noises that annoy you. You can turn those off here. And then we go to interface. Interface is an important one. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to check auto loot on. I cannot imagine why you would not want this on. It is default checked off on every single character you have. I leave the loot key as shift, and what that means is right now if you shift right click on something, it'll grab all the things as opposed to opening it up and letting you choose what to grab. By checking auto loot, that now reverses that. So now if you don't want to loot everything, you hold shift. Otherwise, of course I want it. Always. So there's some different combat settings in here, some display settings. Social is in here. The one thing that you might want to turn off on social is if you don't want to join a guild, you may want to block guild invites because you're going to get spammed with those every time you walk into a major zone. You can also block trades to keep random people from trying to trade with you. Then we get into action bars. This is how I turned all those other action bars on. I wanted all the action bars, so I checked all the things. No big deal there. I also do pick up action key as shift, and what that means is I cannot grab this. However, if I hold shift, I can grab it, and that is how I'm able to kind of decide when things come off my bars and how to adjust them, because you're not going to be holding shift in combat and touching your abilities. Here's the different kind of nameplates you can turn on and off, your camera settings. Water collision's kind of weird. I don't like it on. I've never known anybody to raid with inverted mice, but that's an option. And then different profiles, and so you can kind of jack with a lot of this. I don't really mess with a lot of it because I choose to use UI add-ons for a lot of this, so it takes care of it for me. And then you get into your macros. Now, a lot of these macros, these are saved to your account. You're going to have them forever and ever. So a lot of these macros are things I set up years and years and years ago because I haven't really had to add any since I left. I can have character specific, I can have general ones, and just keep in mind that your general ones, those are things you're going to want to have for all of your characters. Character specific over here, no big deal. You can always grab the macro, copy it to a Word document if you just want to set it up for a couple of classes and you don't want to have it out in that general tab because you are afraid of running out of space. So after macros, this is where you can get to all your add-ons. You see that I have mine all disabled. That's so that they're not messing with kind of your experience and what you're seeing here. You can log out. That'll be instant. If you're in a safe space, a rested zone, you can tell because your level's a bunch of Z's. And otherwise, that'll be that 20-second countdown. You can also go ahead and exit the program altogether. I prefer to do that because if I have my battle.net application open, then it doesn't always ask for my authenticator if I close the app all the way down and open it from that because that thing is authenticated instead. And then we can, of course, return to game. You can just get that by escape. So, a lot of these things, I would get a bag add-on to track this because that's just a pain to deal with. So I have a bag add-on, so I'm not going to mess with anything because I know my add-on's going to grab it back in a second. But that is just a general introduction to the UI as it sits. And I know I was talking kind of fast there, and I would love to make individual guides on any section of this that you guys are confused by. If I don't already have a guide up, it's on the list of things that I'd like to get to, but if you'd like to move it up that list, just leave something in the comments below. If I know somebody's actively looking for a guide, I'm happy to kind of move that up the list and get to it as fast as possible. So this has been Chris with Work to Game, and I hope this kind of just introduces you to the interface and maybe showed you a few things you didn't know were there. I know I went really fast, and I know a lot of it was probably things you already knew, the game already taught you, or it made sense from other MMOs or a pastime playing WoW, but I just wanted to go over it because there are a lot of new faces, especially as we start to see them gear up for Battle for Azeroth. A lot of this guide, this will probably stay relevant well through that. I can't see them making any major UI changes, but if they do, of course, I'll refresh this when that time comes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. This has been Chris with Work to Game, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. YouTube has a pretty cool video waiting for you over here. Our latest vlog is down below. For those of you new, subscribe is over here. And all of our other contact info is just right below me here. Thanks for watching.